Alright, so basically this is the side of the camera that I hate being on. But for this purpose, it looks like this is where I have to be. This video is going to talk about my action research project. I teach middle school science. So I teach 12 to 14-year-old students integrated science. It's a whole litany of different materials and learning, and so keeping them motivated is difficult. And from what I've read, students in the middle school age group are very difficult to motivate. We have a few that are very motivated, and then the vast majority don't care about school. They don't understand why they have to learn what they're learning, and they just go because they have to go, or they go because it's their social outlet. They have no way of getting around, especially here in Florida, so they choose to socialize at school. It's their social time. So basically, I started with a motivational aspect. I started my research on how to motivate students, middle grade students, which I didn't find a whole lot on, but once I widened it to all students, I found that there were a lot of students, adults, teenagers, high school, middle school, that are technology motivated, and that adding technology into the school environment helps keep them motivated. Academically motivated students are more likely to finish high school, go on to college, and be successful in everything that they do. All students will take a pre-survey. The survey consists of 15 questions geared toward assigning a number value to the different aspects of school: social, academic, and electives. Each category had 5 questions, and the questions were stated in such a way that it will assign a numeric score to that category. They were given their first survey on November 1st of 2010. We introduced the quarterly project to one class of students, so all of my students, 123 of them I believe, took the survey. I introduced the project to one class of students. The choices were making connections with real life through any of the following product ideas: the podcast, video with a journal, the short story mini novel, a play, a research paper, a diorama with a short paper explanation, and a poster with a short paper explanation. Those students who chose to do the podcast were advised of mini video tutorials that were available for them, and small group meetings were held at least once a week to discuss problems or answer questions. And I found that a lot of the questions were geared toward the technology rather than the making the connections. They weren't as interested in making connections, they were more interested in the technology. Their journal notebooks will be turned in to be reviewed. I made notes about their motivation, and I was able to assess whether students needed additional help with the technology or with making connections. So at the end of the unit, all the students will be given the survey again to reassess their motivational values and to see if any had changed over the course of the assignment. And that was my project plan, and I know I incorporated a few of my results in there. But that was for cycle 1. Basically, cycle 2 was about the same thing. The only difference was I offered it to a different class. My initial survey, so for all of my students, 77% of students did not have motivation toward their academic studies. 68% were motivated by social aspects of middle school, and 32% of those 77 came to school mostly for sports or electives. 23% of my students were motivated to come to school by the intrinsic response to doing well in their academic studies. They found school to be important, and they made those choices to do well. One class, or 22 students, were offered the choice of the podcasting movie project. My movie podcast group consisted of 2 academically motivated students. 5 of my students were not motivated toward academics, of which 4 of them were my social students, and 1 was elective motivated. Through the project, I found that most of the students doing the movie podcast project were motivated to create the movie, but were not interested in making the connections between science and the real world. Many students chose very simple connections and needed guidance toward making more synthesizing types of connections. I think that as I move on through this project, if I offer the podcasting again, I think I'll do it multiple times and allow those students to do it multiple times, because I think their synthesizing type of connections will increase with their practice of actually creating the movies. Through the first round of journals, I found that one student was very motivated. The student was my academically motivated group. 4 students were moderately motivated, and 1 student was minimally motivated. 1 student was not motivated by the project or the technology at all. 2 students showed a 3 or more point improvement toward their academic motivation. Both were already academically motivated. 4 students showed increases in their academic motivation, but only by a point or 2 overall, which is not all that significant. And 1 student did not show any change in the academic motivation. I found that the students enjoyed having the movie podcasting option for their project. The students that used this option learned new skills in video cameras, iMovie, and GarageBand. In reviewing the final surveys of students who did not choose to do the movie podcasting option, many had increased overall motivation in academic studies by 1 or 2 points. It seems that given the choice to prove mastery in their own format is something that can increase motivation. So I also think that by increasing or including different types of technology, I will reach more students in their academic motivation. This particular project was enlightening, disappointing, challenging. I was challenged by the technology that I offered the students and the problems that they had with it, and then also trying to keep them focused on projects. I was challenged in that the technology was not new to me, but I'm not an expert by any means. So we were learning the technology on some levels together. I was creating the videos so that they had tutorials on how to get started, and then they were getting a little bit more worried about the creative aspect of it or the editing aspect of it, and not as worried about the making connections or the actual assignment and proving mastery in the subject. So I did find that to be a challenge. I did learn that students are motivated by many different things, and while technology is very ingrained in their regular life, that we need to find ways to continue to pull their different motivational ideas out of them. I think that by increasing or adding different technology into my classroom and by offering more choices for my students to prove their mastery will also help motivate them.